Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a very fun team featuring Shadow Tyranitar in the Open Master League. A fellow content creator, Elodie Colo, made the team. He climbed 200 elo to legend with it in one day. I tried it myself, and I had a bunch of back-to-back 4-in-1 sets. The team features Tapu Bulu on the lead with Hisuian Avalugg and Shadow Tyranitar in the back. I do want to offer an important word of caution. While this team worked incredibly well for quite a few people, I don't think it's a team that will work at all elo ranges. For example, the team is triple weak to Melmetal, a Pokemon that is functionally extinct at high elo, but in lower elo brackets, where people are more running what they have rather than necessarily what's like the best possible Pokemon, you're going to be seeing a lot more stuff like Melmetal and Metagross, which would give this team massive problems. So I don't necessarily recommend the team for everyone, just because it can definitely depend on the elo that you're in, but myself and a couple others did have some massively positive results with it, so I did want to share it. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's take a look at Shadow Tyranitar, Tapu Bulu, and Hisuian Avalugg in the Open Master League. Hopping into the first match, picking up an absolute nightmare lead, Tapu Bulu into Ho-Oh. I'm going to save switch into Hisuian Avalugg. Something that I've noticed is basically every Ho-Oh lead team does not have a good response to Hisuian Avalugg. They almost always have dragons in the back, and if it's something like a Dialga, Hisuian Avalugg actually wins the twos there. So they're forced to stay in, shield, go for the Sacred Fire, and now I am still able to bait out the Dialga. They didn't really want to stay in there and give up a second shield, so they can send in the Dialga to absorb that energy, but that's actually very okay for me. I just needed to bait out the Dialga, and then hopefully with a shield advantage, the perfect IV Shadow Tyranitar with Legacy Smackdown will be able to put in some work in the endgame. I fire off the Nature's Madness that is going to connect. I need to be able to outpace the Dialga here, and I am just able to get the Nature's Madness right before they make their next Iron Head. Nature's Madness picks up the KO. They're going to send in Ho-Oh, and in comes Tyranitar. These Smackdowns tearing through Ho-Oh. In the back is Xerneas, and technically, I have been completely hard countered here. However, up a shield, Shadow Tyranitar can put in some work. Opponent does have a nice bait call here, but it's not going to be able to save them. They go for the Moonblast as they should, fishing for the potential debuff, and I can fire off the Brutal Swing when they make it to the close combat to force the final shield. They have to shield here. They need to get my shields down, but the good news for me is that my Tyranitar is not in a range where one move from the Ho-Oh will be able to knock out. In comes the Ho-Oh, they make the Brave Bird, and it all comes down to this. Does the Brave Bird KO? Tyranitar withstands the damage, the level 51 difference, smacking down the Ho-Oh, and we overcome the hard counter team. Great lead in the next match, Tapu Bulu into the Palkia, and the Landorus save switch will immediately be answered by Hisuian Avalugg. Hisuian Avalugg has a very nice matchup here. I'm going to look to farm up and fire off the Icy Wind before they're able to make Sandsear number 2. Typically, we are going to see the Landorus shield at least once, because they more often than not want to try and debuff the energy and get some energy on Palkia. But if they double shield, I'm actually more than willing to let this go and instead just farm down with the Shadow Tyranitar. The reason being is that oftentimes this team has Ho as a third and I can just win off alignment. But if they do have instead Solgaleo, then I'm really going to need an energy lead on the Tyranitar. In comes the Palkia. Palkia farming up energy. They're going to fire off the Aqua Tail, and I'm going to commit the shield with the Tyranitar and just look to overfarm. I need to be able to outpace a potential Solgaleo in the back or make it to a Stone Edge versus a Ho-Oh. I'm going to be able to do both here. The Stone Edge picks up the KO. Is it the Ho-Oh? No, it's the Solgaleo. I am technically triple weak to this Pokemon. I will fire off the Brutal Swing. That does massive damage. They're going to be forced to throw a charge attack here. It'll be really close if I survive a Psychic Fangs or not. They full send the Iron Head, and that's going to allow me to outpace the Solgaleo and make it to the Grass Knot. Grass Knot is going to take down Solgaleo. So a Mon that basically beats our entire team, we're still able to get the win. We've got same leads in the next match, and the exact same save switch as last game. They save switch into the Landorus. This team, by the way, is absolutely everywhere. The Palkia lead with Landorus save switch, and then more often than not, they have, as I mentioned, the Ho-Oh or the Solgaleo in the back. Like this team, I was just seeing non-stop, and it was very, very nice. We are going to be shielding up the Sandsear Storm, firing off the Icy Wind, and looking to put some pressure onto my opponent here. My opponent is going to let this go. I'm more than happy with this situation. They're going to send in the Ho-Oh. I try and go for the Rock Slide, but unfortunately, I was too greedy for timing. I was trying to get every possible Powder Snow, and I don't end up getting the move. The good news is I should still be in a winning position here. I intentionally don't throw a Smackdown after they Brave Bird because I'm expecting to switch, so that allows me to get a very quick switch into the Bulu, and they throw on alignment. They give me an entire Bullet Seed for free, which is very, very nice. And now, I just really don't want to throw a move. I can't give Ho-Oh massive farm, so as long as I don't let them get a huge amount of farm, I'm in a very comfortable position here. So they can bring back in the Ho-Oh, I can go for the Nature's Madness, and now they're going to have to deal with Smackdowns when their defense has been debuffed. They end up shielding, in comes the Tyranitar, and they will concede the match just before the Smackdown KOs. Picking up a decent lead in the next match, Tapu Bulu versus Dialga. We do win the 2-shield here, so as the Tapu Bulu, I have high incentive to double shield. I'm going to be firing off the Nature's Madness. The Nature's Madness is going to connect into Dialga, and on the second one, I will be going for a slight undercharge. This will allow me to get a Bullet Seed farm down, because energy on Tapu Bulu does end up being very important. So I am going to go for a slight undercharge here. The Nature's Madness barely doesn't KO, but my opponent makes a really, really good play here. My opponent actually decides to switch out and save the 1 HP Dialga, denying my farm down. I'm able to pick up the KO with the Brutal Swing. In the back, it's a pretty big surprise. They have a Groudon. Groudon, not a Pokemon I've seen too much of since Landorus completely took over the meta, and this team is pretty weak to Groudon. Groudon has massively overfarmed. They don't really have a reason to bait, but I don't want to shield, so I'm just going to let the Tyranitar go. I can send in the Hisuian Avalugg, but Precipice Blades is going to absolutely destroy me. I have a tough call to make, as they do have enough for the Blades. I decide to let it go. It's the Precipice Blades, and my Avalugg gets one-hit KO'd. The Tapu Bulu is not in a range where a Fire Punch will KO. Fire Punch is going to do a ton of damage. Like, Groudon has a massive attack stat, but I will be able to withstand this damage, so I am going to no shield here as my opponent goes for the Fire Punch. The Fire Punch is going to get me low, and at this moment, I'm thinking that my undercharge versus the Dialga is actually going to cost me this game. I wait the turn to make sure they don't catch, and I'm able to pick up the KO with the Nature's Madness, but they still have just a couple HP on the Dialga, and they take advantage of the fact that I undercharged earlier, and they're able to win. The Ho-Oh lead returns in the next match, so I'm forced to immediately save switch into the Hisuian Avalugg, and my opponent is going to respond with Palkia. With an energy advantage on the Avalugg, this is a flippable matchup, so if I can win switch advantage, I'm going to try and go for it. Playing this matchup is always a bit interesting, because Icy Wind, of course, gives guaranteed debuffs, but Rock Slide hits harder. So typically I'll go for Icy Wind if I need the debuff, and if I want the damage, then I'm going to go for the Rock Slide. I went for the Icy Wind. The Icy Wind unfortunately means that I'm not quite going to be able to get the farm down, so I'm just going to fire off the Icy Wind, because getting switch advantage is absolutely everything here. And I do get switch. In comes the Ho-Oh, and I faint right as I make it to the Rock Slide. I send in the Tyranitar. I do get the Smackdown through as they fire off their move. It's a Brave Bird, and now I'm just looking to switch, and in the back, it's another Groudon, but this one is running Dragon Tail, and the Dragon Tail Groudon is pretty sad running into Tapu Bulu, as they just have absolutely zero fast move pressure here. Their fast move is double resisted, and it's a 3-turn, so it's not like Dragon Breath, where at the very least Dragon Breath, due to it being a 1-turn move, will add up over time. Dragon Tail, really not going to cut it. I go for an undercharge here because I wanted more farm. They end up shielding, and at this point, I can just win this game with Tyranitar, because I can just smack all the way down. I send in the Tyranitar. Opponent realizes they're just getting farmed down, and they just stop tapping. They know what is going to happen. The Shadow Tyranitar getting the farm down, and they can send in the Ho-Oh, but Ho-Oh is just getting fully farmed down by the Shadow Tyranitar as we're able to take the game. We see an amazing lead in the next match, Tapu Bulu into Kyogre. They save switch into a Togekiss, and this is looking like a double charm team. And if it is, we are very well positioned to handle it. I go for the Rock Slide here because I want the damage. The Rock Slide means they're only able to make an Ancient Power. Ancient Power, not something I have to worry about at this health range. It's only if they get to an Aura Sphere that it's worrying. They get the boost, but honestly, that's a little bit better for me, because that is going to mean that Kyogre is going to get slightly less farm. They bring back in the Kyogre, I fire off the Rock Slide, and Kyogre is such a large Pokemon that we're just seeing the, like, imprint of its smile there for a second. In the back, it is going to be the Primarina. I can go for the Nature's Madness to force the shield, and now that the defense has been debuffed, look at the Smackdowns. Look at the Smackdowns. Those do not look neutral to me. Primarina getting torn to shreds by the Shadow Tyranitar. Tyranitar fires off the Brutal Swing. That picks up the KO. In comes Kyogre. These Smackdowns getting Kyogre low. Kyogre does have a lot of energy, but they're going to have to deal with the fact that they're going to be continually debuffed until they fully get farmed down. Opponent goes for the Hail Mary win con, full sending the Blizzard. If they tried to go for the Triple Surf, it would have been pretty close, but realistically, it was still going very favorably for the Bulu. As we see, 5 more Bullet Seeds after the debuff are able to pick up that KO. We've got a surprise in the lead in the next match, leading Tapu Bulu into a non-Shadow Tyranitar. They save switch into Dialga Origin, and I'm more than happy to stay in here and shield until I'm able to win switch advantage. The non-Shadow Tyranitar is a surprise because if it's possible to run the Shadow, you should in the Master League. The Shadow, just the damage output, really gives you some very interesting win cons in the 2-shield that the normal is not able to do. Like, you're able to 2-shield your way through Xerneas and Zacian. In this matchup, it's very nice that the Dialga Origin is not best buddied. If they're best buddied with 15 HP, they actually live that final Bullet Seed there, and they're able to make it to a second Iron Head without having to give up a shield themselves. So if they were best buddied, I would have had to potentially switch and snipe with the Powder Snow on the Avalugg. Speaking of the Avalugg, we are able to catch the Moonblast, where it is only going to be neutral, but unfortunately, they leave us with a parting gift, as I'm met with the 10% chance Moonblast attack drop, which is brutal. I go for the Icy Wind. I'm just looking for a bit of damage reduction here. I just cannot make it to another move, unfortunately. I'm going to send in my own Tyranitar, and now we have the battle of the Tyranitars. They are debuffed. They go for the Stone Edge. That does quite a lot of damage. I'm going to go for the Brutal Swing, and I win charge attack priority because my Tyranitar does have Best Buddy boost equipped. Brutal Swing is going to pick up the KO. In comes that Xerneas, but Xerneas will immediately be debuffed by Nature's Madness. They're going to commit the shield, and at this point, I should just be in a very comfortable position to close out the game. They're going to fire off a move. They're debuffed. I can just one-shield Smackdown with the Tyranitar. That's made a lot easier by the fact that they close combat, but either way, we were just in a winning position at this moment, and we're able to take the game. Moving to the next match. What do you know? Another Dialga Origin leading into the Tapu Bulu. This Dialga is Best Buddy boost equipped. So if they end up no-shielding the second Nature's Madness, then we could potentially see that scenario that I was talking about. They're always going to no-shield the first, and considering what I have in the back, I'm very happy to play this out, since Iron Head hits my entire team for either super effective or double super effective damage. I will go for the Nature's Madness right away. This is going to be getting them very, very low. The opponent is actually going to commit the shield, which works out very, very nicely for me. They're going to be able to outpace here. I'm going to shield, and then I should look to farm up very close to back-to-back moves here. Throwing right away is a mistake, because at this point, the move will KO. I'm going to farm up just shy of 100 energy. They will basically never shield here, because they know that they lose the 2s. But this way, I exit very close to a move. They send in the Mewtwo. I'm able to fire off the Grass Knot just before they're able to make their Psy Strike. Grass Knot, of course, does hit harder. I get the shield back, which is massive. In hindsight, maybe I should have just immediately pivoted into the Avalugg, but I decided that switch advantage was too good to pass up. And now I can put the Tyranitar on the Mewtwo. Mewtwo going to get knocked out here by the Brutal Swing. It all comes down to what do they have in the back. Brutal Swing picks up the KO, and it's Kyogre in the back. Unfortunately, there's no way to win this game. I get the catch onto Hisui and Avalugg, but even this cannot win me the game. Shadow Tyranitar, I have a move banked, but I lose charge attack priority to the Kyogre. So all the Kyogre has to do is just farm down. Even if I debuff with an Icy Wind, it still KOs. So my only hope is for some reason they throw, but they're never going to. I bring in the Tyranitar, and we do lose charge attack priority, and unfortunately, we're going to lose the match. That's my fault. I'm playing an ABB style team. I should have checked to see if there was a counter to the rock types in the back, and I didn't, so I lose. Great lead in the final match. Oh no, and we're back to the Palkia Landorus core again. This core is so much fun to see with this team because you just absolutely bully them. It is amazing. The Icy Wind is going to be shielded up by the Landorus, and let's see, is Landorus willing to double shield, or are they going to play out the ones? They're going to try and go for charge stack priority. I decide that I do want a little bit of extra energy, so I'm not going to throw right away, but I am going to undertap here because I don't want them to be able to make it to another Sandseer. They're going to play the ones and send in the Palkia. Palkia will be met with the Rock Slide. Rock Slide will do slightly more damage. That's very okay. And then I have to watch for the switch. And oh, that is not what I was expecting. I was expecting a Ho-Oh in the back, but it's not the Ho-Oh. It's actually a Hisuian Avalugg. But this is very okay because Shadow Tyranitar, I mean, look at these smackdowns. Even after the debuff, the smackdowns are adding up. I'll fire off the Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing is going to be shielded up by the Hisuian Avalugg. Hisuian Avalugg firing off a move, and I think I just never shield here. They go for the Rock Slide because it does do more damage, and oh man, if I wasn't best buddied, maybe I get KO'd there, but on 1 HP, I survive. All they have left is the Palkia. I send in the Tapu Bulu. They are still playing it out here. They're firing off a move, but it's just not going to matter. Tapu Bulu, just a complete wall. They go for the Spatial Rend, and I get to return fire with the Nature's Madness. Down goes Palkia, and we take the win. All in all, I had a ton of fun getting to run this team, and big congratulations to Elodie Colo for the massive climb to Legend with the team, and for creating the team as well. The team felt really well balanced for the specific elo range that I was playing in, and he was playing in a pretty similar elo range, which was kind of the expert to legend-ish elo range. I do kind of want to remind of the cautionary warning that I gave at the start, which is that this team does have its weaknesses. It is triple weak to Melmetal. If you see a Melmetal, you're probably just going to instantly lose. It's very weak to stuff like Metagross, but at higher elo, those Pokemon have been power crept out of the meta, so you're very rarely going to see them, whereas at a lower elo, where people are playing with what they have, rather than like the most optimized top 3 PV poke, then you're probably going to see more of those Pokemon, so I don't necessarily recommend this particular team for all elo ranges, but for the elo range that we were playing in, it performed incredibly well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys always very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.